Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Meena Dayak. I'm the Executive Vice President of Market Intelligence at Open Minds, and I will serve as the moderator for your web briefing today. While the struggles to manage through the pandemic crisis are still significant, executives are beginning to think about what comes after with the impending recession and the market turbulence that we can expect. And we at Open Minds are here to help you plan for the new normal with our executive blueprint for crisis management. Through this program, we are providing on-demand resources and technical assistance to help you prepare for the market disruption. Today, my colleague and Open Minds Senior Associate, Dr. Stephen Remillard, will talk about going virtual service, reaching consumers where they are at with telehealth and more, an overview. I am looking forward to the insights on telehealth that he will be sharing before, during, and especially after COVID-19. What should we be prepared for? So just a word about Dr. Stephen Remillard. He brings more than 25 years of experience in the health and human service field to the Open Minds consulting practice. He currently serves as a senior associate, leading projects related to value-based purchasing, integrated care programming, HEDIS measurement, data-driven organizational development, and social determinants of health. Before I hand it off to Steve, a couple of housekeeping reminders. Your audio will be muted throughout today's web briefing, but we welcome your questions and anything that you want to share. Just type them into the question box that you see on usually the right of your screen, and you can send them in at any time throughout the briefing. So after the presentation, Steve will be available for as long as it takes to answer all of your questions and address your comments. And the recording and the slides from today's web briefing will also be available on the Open Minds website to our circle members with elite level access. And we should have that up by tomorrow. Okay, with that, thank you all for joining us today. We're very excited to have you. And Steve, take it away.
Well, thank you very much, Meena. I appreciate it. And I want to thank everybody for joining me today as we go through another presentation of our executive blueprint response to crisis and crisis management. Today, I'm going to have the pleasure of talking about really the phenomenal development and utilization of telehealth services within this crisis that we are currently involved with. And I think we're also going to take telehealth and we're going to couch it into a bigger issue of and the bigger idea of development of your virtual healthcare services. So with that in mind, our agenda today will be focused around, starting with, I should say, pre-crisis telehealth, what the world looked like before. Then we're going to take a quick walk through some of the current telehealth rules that were developed to deal with this crisis, as well as some updates. There's been a couple of changes since we last spoke of this in one of our previous sessions, and really start talking about next steps, future world, and this new paradigm of virtual health services, and what that might look like, and some concrete steps in moving your programming forward in that area. If we can take a look at the next slide, please. So just a quick look back at the pre-COVID world and the world before crisis is important. But before we go too much further, I do want to just kind of couch this discussion in our overall goal with this crisis management workshop. And obviously, we are all in crisis mode right now. We are in the phase of leadership that is focused on management of day-to-day issues, as we like to say, putting out the fires, and heavily invested in management agendas. But there is a second layer to crisis, and when we think about crisis, when we think about disruption, we also have to think about the fact that this is really a time for potential innovation and leadership, and moving your organization forward into what will be coming next, into the next world. And so the success of your organization is going to be highly dependent upon how you act, what you act now, what kind of programming and development that you're doing now. So there is, of course, the management component. There is also that leadership component that we want to focus on. We want to be on the offensive and not always on the defensive as we're moving through a crisis. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and move to our next slide. So there we go. The pre-crisis telehealth world, I will mention, telehealth has been around for 40, 50 years. It is not new. However, in the last 2 years, there has been ongoing development of telehealth and increased utilization, not nearly where we're at right now. But I think that it's important when we look at this slide that we do understand that there were a couple of major pieces that were already in place before the crisis. And one is that many provider organizations were already invested in telehealth. In a 2019 survey of 600 broad healthcare providers, 41% were already in the telemedicine space. 34% were in the deployment process. 76% of hospitals were using virtual care. So there was a footprint already established there. There was also another key component that was unmet, and that was the unmet consumer need and desire for telehealth. We know that amongst individuals that were using telehealth care as part of their treatment processes, a high majority of them, 75% of patients, reported that they liked, that they enjoyed being able to use telehealth as part of their treatment programming. They noted that they were very satisfied with their services. And I think that the other key component that sometimes gets lost in telehealth is this idea that it was only for the native mobile, that it was for this younger generation of individuals. One of the things that I drew out of taking a look at some of this research is the fact that there are many seniors that are more than willing to use telehealth as part of their treatment process. In fact, 52% said that they would be more than happy to be using telehealth. So we see that there was a developed and developing infrastructure of telehealth. We know that there was a consumer market and a consumer need for telehealth. I should point out that over 400 million non-emergent telemedicine visits could be made at this point in time, leading up to this crisis that we're currently in, and was certainly being underutilized. However, shifting that kind of potential energy and leveraging that potential energy into kinetic energy does take a push. And of course, in this case, it was necessity, and necessity has dictated a change in our service system. Can we take a look at the next slide, please? the unexpected hit and a lot of good ideas and good intentions around telehealth became actualized in what is really an amazing ramp up for services. If we just take a quick look at some of these examples on this slide, we see health systems that went from 200 visits a week up to 12,000 visits a week since the onset of this crisis. We have seen, organizations move to half of their primary care visits being conducted via telehealth. We see 900% increases in patient utilization of telehealth. So this is really an impressive phenomena. It is also a testament to the fact of how scalable telehealth technology is, which is really an important takeaway. This idea that the size of your organization and whatever you determine to be your telehealth footprint can easily be scaled up or scaled down depending on what your strategic goals might be. This, of course, wasn't going to happen without some significant regulatory changes. And if we could take a look at our next slide, we'll do a quick review of some of those changes. It's well known, particularly within the public-funded sphere of payer reimbursement, that there were many extremely restrictive regulatory rules associated with telehealth, and it was an obvious barrier. There were some attempts to address them at a state level, but at a federal level, of course, it took a crisis. And I think most of us are probably familiar with most of these regulatory changes. We're seeing better rates. We're seeing expanded provider type specialties being allowed to utilize telehealth. We're seeing home care and services being delivered directly into homes being utilized. We, of course, have seen the expanded use of technologies, the ability to use things like FaceTime and other commercial grade communication platforms have been widely utilized up to this point. And of course, the loosening of the restrictions around HIPAA and the suspending of penalties for violation of HIPAA processes have gone and have made it much easier to use telehealth as part of your treatment protocols. So of course we do have our 1135 waiver. It's in place, and of course we've seen a number of these changes readily enacted and utilized. If we go to our next slide, we can talk a little bit about a couple of the newer developments since the May 6th signing of the 1135 waiver. One of those temporary expansions of telehealth is the expansion into utilizing telehealth in nursing homes, assisted living communities, hospices, as well as 80 additional services that were added into the new telehealth protocol. They've also given physicians much more latitude in determining whether somebody's needs can be met within a home healthcare environment, and being able to utilize telehealth to meet those service needs. So it's been yet another expansion of the telehealth rules, and that we've seen very recently, starting on March 30th. The expansion that we're seeing, we've mentioned within the public sector, but the commercial sector is also going through a number of innovations. If we could take a look at the next slide, please. Again, a slew of innovations occurring within the can we go to the commercial plan slide? Thank you. we're seeing a number of changes within that commercial space. We're seeing the upgrading, enhancing of the policies for telehealth by commercial payers. We're seeing a lot of waiving of co-payments for telehealth. We're seeing a lot of development of 24-hour hotlines. Wellness applications are being developed very quickly across the board. Many commercial payers are investing heavily into the telehealth spectrum. And we are also just recently, if we go to the next slide, we're going to see that there was just another expansion, I should say, or an influx, more accurately, of cash into the treatment system. This is cash that is directed at the HRSA health centers, HRSA-funded health centers, I should say. It is designated for the development, amongst other things, of telehealth technology that can be applied to the COVID response. And of course, if you are in that market, if you are in that target zone, this is certainly technology that can be leveraged for your crisis management, your emergency response, but it can also have carryover into your planning as you develop your telehealth technology as well as your virtual footprint within the treatment space. And so, of course, I think that it's important, and we brought this up in some of our previous presentations, that if you are an eligible organization for this type of grant, we urge you to get into line quickly if you haven't already. We've already seen, if we go to our next slide, that a number of the CARES-related funding initiatives on slide 12 have been utilized and have run out of funds to support. But here is a list of a number of different benefit and grant programs. We have a link for these at the end. I don't think we need to go into them. I think they've been well covered in some of our previous presentation. But what we've really done is move us towards setting the table for our big question. If we can take a look at slide 13, please. Aptly named the big question. What's going to happen after the crisis? What's going to occur with telehealth after the crisis? And I've had a number of conversations with people within the healthcare industry, people on the government side of the industry, and to tell you exactly what's going to happen is probably is difficult, but it's not impossible. We have to keep in mind that we are living within a new normal. That this new normal, although driven by a crisis, is demonstrating the efficacy of healthcare. It is demonstrating on a large scale that what we traditionally thought about as being necessary face-to-face healthcare is really not the case. It has allowed us the opportunity to rethink a number of stereotypical, predetermined thought processes that we had about healthcare and what it looks like. And I think we also have to keep in mind, in spite of the fact that we're seeing people start to get a little bit upset about the ongoing quarantining effort, we're going to see that this COVID process is going to have legs to it. It's going to be around. It's going to be around for a while, and so we are not going to be walking away from a lot of these regulatory changes immediately. And many of them, particularly around where you can provide it, providers that can utilize telehealth will stay in place. There will be a number of legislative processes that come out. The areas that will probably see some regression back towards pre-COVID, pre-emergent levels would probably be around ideas of HIPAA regulatory processes and maintaining privacy within this realm. I think the other will be there will be some pullback in terms of the technology that can be utilized for telehealth. So as you're thinking about how you're going to be embedding telehealth within your virtual treatment system, I think that you really should be taking a close look at the technology you have, at the technology that will keep you within those compliant regions that were important before COVID. However, I think that there's going to be ample opportunity to expand your service array within that. The stepping off point here is yes, there's going to be changes. I think that it is truly, though, the opportunity to move away. Also, there's the overused phrase of thinking outside the box. This is our opportunity to think outside of brick and mortar. And so let's go ahead and move to our next slide and take a look at planning for this new paradigm, planning for a new virtual reality. We have to help support that thinking. I think we should take a look at kind of the new medical economy of virtual health, and there are a slew of upsides that can be played upon as you develop your telehealth capacity. Again, thinking beyond what your normal limits were in terms of overhead, in terms of brick and mortar, savings that can be realized by reducing travel, your ability to reach individuals in markets that were difficult to reach in the past, be it rural markets. It could also be urban markets that will be more available to you through a telehealth platform than that were available before. Your ability to scale that technology, your ability to scale it in terms of return on investment of that technology, thinking outside of a narrow window of hours of providing services, and moving towards a more 24/7 model of care, your ability to reach SMI populations, your ability to deal with wait list management, your ability to interact and integrate specialty providers into your care continuum for the individuals that you serve within your network is greatly enhanced as well. It also opens up an opportunity to reach a commercial population that might have been a little bit more difficult to reach through a traditional brick and mortar model of care delivery. And there are, of course, some excellent private market systems that are already in place. If we can take a look at slide 16, the marketplace is evolving. We are seeing online counseling really taking off. This is an innovative market. We are seeing counseling taking off. We're also seeing the development of online psychiatry. And these are just two of many, Talkspace, Cerebral, BetterHealth. There are a slew of these out there. They have seen phenomenal growth and development since the onset of the emergency state, and they offer up some interesting thoughts and some features that are applicable to our thinking as we move into this virtual space more and more. One, of course, is the issue that many programs are dealing with right now, and that's a cash flow issue. These new services are money up front, paying for service in advance. It is a new cash stream or a potential cash stream, and I think any way that you can add diversity to your cash stream processes is a positive for your organization. And these are wonderful examples. I think that the other really impressive takeaway that I have when I look at these online marketplaces is the fact that they have really optimized the consumer experience and optimized levels of consumer satisfaction by doing things like having immediate enrollment. That when you go online or you reach out to them, depending on whether you're doing it online or via some sort of audio video process, you are linked almost immediately to a counselor. You're linked to somebody that is now going to escort you through this world, this new world of service delivery. Some of these e-counselings are very sophisticated in terms of using things like IBM Watson and matching technologies to optimize the success possibilities within that treatment protocol. And so taking a look at these strategic elements that they've optimized is really important. And I have to mention, as somebody that has background in mental health, the reduction and the removal of stigma for treatment via telehealth, via virtual care, really cannot be underestimated in terms of its importance for individuals seeking treatment. So with that in mind, this is, of course, this is partially your competition. I think it's also something that you can pull pieces from and emulate. And I think you also have to keep in mind that as provider networks, you have a lot more to offer than simply e-counseling. Keep in mind, you have a beautiful wedge in terms of the case management, the integration of care that you're able to do that these sites are not able to do. So as much as it's competition, it is also an opportunity for you to demonstrate your strength areas as well. If we can move to the next slide. So what we want to do next is really start to put together a checklist of an inventory process of what your telehealth process looks like, pieces that you may need to address to help to expand that footprint, to help develop that business model. So how do you want to install? How do you want to expand? How do you want to create your delivery capacity, virtual delivery capacity, and what are some best practices? And so with that in mind, we're going to go ahead and move to the next slide. And we put together some steps and considerations, and maybe steps is a little bit of a misnomer. This is really kind of a multi-planar, parallel processing of a number of different structural implementation processes, evaluation processes that you'll need to develop and think about as you think about your virtual space within your human services market. So if we can go ahead to the next slide, let's just take it point by point through these 8 different steps. This first one it really asks the question, what do you want to do? What do you want to do with your organization? Our definition, our thought processes around what face-to-face services are has to shift. So take a step back. If you were to write a headline about your organization, what would that headline say? What is your strength? And how can you move that strength? How can you develop that service line in a virtual world? Are there new service lines that you might want to think about developing within your service array? Taking a look at what your population is, taking a look at other populations that you feel that you should be serving or that you're underserving are also a possibility. Taking a look at that commercial space with a new eye is really important at this point. You have, again, these commercial insurers are expanding their definitions and their policies. This is a good time to think about utilizing those things, and from the beginning, thinking about what your return on investment is with this, thinking about how you can utilize alternative scheduling processes to serve these individuals. So really start thinking about what your overall service plan can look like, and allow yourself to be creative. This is an Apollo 13. Everything is on the table process. What pieces do you need? What pieces do you want to take away? And how do you want to think about starting to move your programming forward? Once you start to think about that and nail down what those thought processes is, you can really start moving into some specifics very quickly. If we move to slide number 20, let's really talk about, the fact is, you need to be paid for your services, and you need to take a look at who your payers are, and don't limit yourself. We have the major public as well as private payers that you need to consider. Keeping in mind, Medicaid is a state-to-state process. Medicare is more federally mandated. Commercial insurers vary plan by plan. You have to be able to take a look and know who those payers are, and check and see what their reimbursed service lines are, and when possible, really think about contracting so that you have a ground floor on which to build your services on. If we can go to the next slide, I think this is really a key slide in terms of thinking about payment and not making assumptions about payments. Making assumptions that you will be paid leads to rejected claims, and the heartburn of trying to collect for services already rendered. Put in a little bit of sweat equity on this front end. Take a look at assuring that you have the provider types, the required license, the required certification, the credentialing, and place of services that meet the criteria of your payers, and then start to think about aligning those with what your IT needs are. If we can take a look at our next slide. And the next slide is, do you know what your current capacity is? Have you taken a look at that capacity? Does it align with what your goals are? If it's already there, if it's already in place, you're in a wonderful position to move forward. If not, it is a time to quickly go back and walk through some of the basics, starting with the very basics. Do you have the basic infrastructure technology, broadband, physical space that's necessary for this? A close look at your EHR capabilities is wonderful. Does it interface with your telehealth technology? Can you remotely access your EHR so that billing and scheduling can be done in an incredibly efficient manner? Because when we move into a virtual world, there's a whole new level of management that you need to start taking into consideration. Remote management is a challenge, and it is a relatively new challenge for many organizations. And having that infrastructure of EHR that supports that remote ability to do work, that can monitor productivity, that is interoperative with other EHR systems, that is interoperative with the web, with mobile applications, and frankly, is intuitive for the user is just incredibly important. So take a look at these pieces, make sure that they're in place, and if they're not in place, this is a good time to revisit them, to work closely with your EHR vendor or bring in other EHR vendors to see what the possibilities are, and think about the scalability as well, because what may start as a small program can really develop into something bigger. And once these pieces are in place, it's time to move on. And if we can look at slide 23, this is really, let's really make a plan now. Let's create a timeline and let's implement that plan. And I've always found, in terms of project management, having the right person run your program is the key. Know who the crusader is for your programming, know who's going to be able to follow through with all these different pieces of the telehealth build out, of your virtual build out. And this does not need to be a tech expert. Having a little bit of tech knowledge is fine. You need somebody that understands the key elements and knows how to bring those key elements together. Really take a look at what your budget is. If you need to upgrade, then upgrade to the best platform that you can afford. If you need to buy a new program, buy a new system, then upgrade to the best that you can. Make sure that you are once you start to get that system into place. I'm a strong believer in testing any sort of new technology that you have, and make sure that within that implementation plans, again, I repeat this a little bit, but your return on investment is key. Keep an eye on those financial metrics, and keep an eye on performance metrics as well. So we've really talked a lot about some operational and financial and some technical aspects of this process. There's also the human side of this equation, which we can take a look at with our next slide. And that really, it's important to keep in mind that this is a multi-layer process. Keep in mind that this first bullet that we're taking a look at on this slide, the frustration of dealing with technology that doesn't work is a motivation killer, and it is a practice killer. When your employees and when your consumers are struggling with the technology, you will quickly lose business. You will not be able to get the traction you need to grow and develop this business model. So train your staff and then overtrain your staff, keeping in mind that there are many within the human service field that have a little aversion to technology. Being mindful of that change management, being mindful of that anxiety and dealing with that. The best way to do that is repetition and training, and making sure everybody is able to use the technology, that when small glitches arise, they don't have to run to the IT person for every little thing. If they can fix it right then and there and keep the process moving, the treatment protocol and processes moving, that's a wonderful thing. So on a very human level, you need to make sure that you're focusing your organization, and on a larger level, you need to prepare your organization. So let's take a look at the next slide, please. The new infrastructure needs to be in place, and it's not just an IT infrastructure. We've covered a number of the important aspects of the IT infrastructure. There are best practices that you need to create in terms of management. You need to create supervision models that are meeting the needs of a telehealth virtual process. Making sure that you have HIPAA compliance. Consider things like getting certification for your system. I think it's a great sell point that people understand that your system is not some, we'll call it a fly-by-night organization, that it is a well-developed, that it assures privacy, it assures that it's certified, and that you have your risk management protocols in place, that you write out and develop your policies and procedures so that they reflect this new paradigm. And at that point, when those pieces are in place, you can really do what comes next, and that's taking a plan, which is a pile of papers, and moving it into and realizing and moving that plan into action. Which, if we can move to slide 26. When we implement a plan, I think it's easy to get caught up in the details of the plan, but we have to remember that the plan is there for a reason. It's there to serve the individuals and consumers that need your assistance, and you need to focus on customer service and making sure that this new program is accessible, that it's easy to use, that it is seamless in its presentation. You're a leader, and you need to lead your staff and your consumers and escort them into this new world. Make sure that that everybody is educated about what the expectations are for this treatment protocol. Make sure that they have the right technology that they can that they can utilize. That you give them a how-to guide of what they can do and what problems they may run into, and that it's simple and it's useful and it's something that they have in hand. And of course, we want you to make sure that you're continuously assessing your consumer satisfaction. There's really this leads us into our next level of your virtual environment, which is really taking a close look at what your virtual profile looks at. If we can go ahead and take a look at the next slide. You have to keep in mind that we now live in a world where word of mouth is virtual. It is not face to face anymore. I'm sure that there is still face to face, but your mouth to mouth is really virtual, and you need to be an active player in this space, making sure that your online presence is clearly demonstrates what your programming is about, prioritizes your objectives. You know who your audience is, and you're getting it to the channels that reaches your audience. That you are taking a look at the volume of individuals that are utilizing and looking at your virtual presence, your online presence, that you are continually doing quality feedback and enhancing that process. That you are using, if it's social media, that you're monitoring online reviews, that you're getting your press releases out and you're doing your public relations, that you're optimizing your search engine, the search engine keys, so that when people are looking for your services, they're being driven directly to your site, and it's tailored to meet the priorities of your audience, making sure that it is ADA compliant, whatever you're doing. In the virtual world, if you are static, you are losing. It needs to be an ongoing, updated daily process, and it will certainly maximize the results that you're looking for within the new virtual space that you're planning and developing within your organization. And I included one last slide just as a reminder that I think this crisis has pushed a lot of people that were not traditionally hashtag work from homers, WFHers. They now are. It is for some people a dream come true. For many other people, it's a bit of a nightmare. Extroverts often find it very difficult to be in a work from home environment. Not everybody was made for this. Getting the right people into the right place to serve this new virtual organizational need cannot be underestimated. I doubt that there's anybody in our listening audience today that hasn't seen the effect of having the wrong person in the wrong job, and conversely seen how amazing a program can be when the right person is running the right program. And so that is my final thought on our new virtual reality that we are in the process of creating, in some cases recreating and developing. And if we have any questions, I'll be glad to take those questions at this time and do the best I can to answer this. We do, at the end of the presentation, do have links for a number of the topics that we've covered today as well.
Steve, thank you very much for that great presentation. Thank you for walking us through what's happening now and what lies in store for us. So I'm going to start with a question that just came in. Why do you think there will be a little regression of virtual services? What if we anticipate that payers will try to roll back after COVID-19, that virtual services will not be covered like they are now? You know, you're predicting an increase, but what if it goes the other way?
Right. That's really based on conversations that I've had with people I know within the commercial payer, as well as some folks within the government realm. The areas where there will most likely be some drift back towards pre-COVID world will be in the area of what technologies we can use. Again, the commercial grade technologies, the FaceTimes, they have been wonderful stopgap measures. They don't really reach the level of privacy that we would like to see within this that we had before COVID. So there's a higher likelihood that those will draw back a little bit. I think that what's more important here is that the idea that even if you don't have the more commercial grade technologies, those commercial grade technologies don't really tie into your EHR systems. So the newer technologies you can streamline into your organization's basic infrastructure, so you can make sure that scheduling is done at a centralized location, that claims can be notes and claims can be submitted easily. So the point I think that I really take away from this is we can't predict with 100% certainty what's going to change and what not change. There is a lot of momentum though right now to say, hey, this idea of having an expanded base of providers that can provide service via telehealth is incredibly efficient. It's important. It's demonstrating that it works, and it's also the idea that you don't need to be at a specified location, that telehealth can be done from a home has been well demonstrated as well, and it really overcomes a lot of treatment barriers. So those are the ones that I think have the highest likelihood of staying. The ones that are a little bit more associated with privacy are going to be harder to keep moving forward. I would say overall there is an overall expectation that many of the rules that we're seeing in the COVID world will continue moving forward.
Thank you, Steve. And there are some questions up on the screen that attendees were asking us as they registered. You've probably answered some of them already in your comments, so
yeah.
we just run through and see.
Very
Steve,
quickly.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So the online counseling certainly is a new market force that provider and provider organizations are going to have to take a close look at. They will be drawing on the overall market. I think that organizations have an opportunity to compete with these services, and I think that they compete on a number of different levels. One is, as I mentioned earlier, is the array of services that you're able to provide. The other one would be that you know your market, you know the area that you're in, and so you're able to, I think, be more strategic in how you do your marketing for your services. So I think those are two major factors that allow you to compete at that level.
Yeah,
So do you
Steve,
think we can continue? What's that?
I'm sorry. So about the online counseling sites, when I was briefly on one of them just checking it out, it seems like they are not really covered by insurance, that a lot of them function like subscription services, a pay-as-you-go deal. Do you still see demand for those types of services then if people are not able to get their insurance to pay for it?
That's always going to be a difficult question. I think if you have a good service, you will be able to draw, regardless of whether the person is using.
Steve, I think we just lost you on audio. Could you come back?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Thanks.
Okay. I just shifted over to my computer audio. Good service is going to be paid for one way or the other. I think that again, one of the advantages of being a provider is that you do have more access to insurance coverages, more so than the commercial plans do. So there are opportunities in there as well. I do think of it as a potential revenue stream, though, moving forward, that there are many people that don't have a commercial insurance that is robust enough that pays for some of these services. And creating a service line that's a self-pay service line is something that organizations should take a close look at.
Thank you. And can you talk a little bit about, you mentioned that the systems that we have are connected with EHR, other systems which are not fully compliant, it's hard to tie them into our EHRs. So what if I'm not able to perform all functions right now as a provider organization? If I can only deliver virtual services, but I can't link it to my scheduling, to being able to put in paperwork, if I can't have that full connection with my scheduling systems and with my EHRs, would you suggest continuing to deliver services and preparing to scale up as we move forward? What's your advice there?
The advice that we have for that is goes back to a point regarding working with the best possible system you can afford at this point in time. I think that if you are aware of what your limitations are, then you will develop some systems and processes to get around those limitations until you reach a point where you can utilize a system that is a little bit more agile. The other thing is to take a close look at the funding that's available right now. There, as we mentioned earlier, there was just another infusion of capital for the HRSA-based providers, and the other forms of capital that were already released in the first phase of the CARES Act. So I would take a close look at those. And if you roll out your best possible program and you start to see return on investment, then I would look at reinvesting into your infrastructure.
Great. Thanks, Steve. And I think Ray Teller just made a really good point, if you want to respond to it, said that even if things do return to pre-COVID rates, isn't it just reasonable for us to improve our service delivery by using telehealth? Shouldn't be scaling up our technology anyway.
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful point. the opportunity to improve on your healthcare, improve on the integration of your care using telehealth is there, and I think that this part of what this emergent state has demonstrated to us that we can do a lot more with it than we have up to this point.
All right, thank you. And can you talk a little bit about, I mean, I think most provider organizations are seeing a drop in the number of service units, and although people are adapting to telehealth, it's definitely not at the same pace as in-person visits. What do you know about the issue of accessibility for consumers? What if they don't have the smartphones, laptops, tablets, whatever they need? What do you think is a solution for people like that?
And that's we struggle with that one because we get back to that idea of the digital divide. That there are those that do have this and those that don't. I think that there are. It takes a lot of creativity and case management, and for a number of organizations, their case management unit has been able to either find somebody that is close to the individual that is able to assist with the technology piece. The other possibility is that there are some organizations that do have some lending type of scenarios for individuals that don't have that piece. Now you do get back down to the basic technology. Do they have some form of broadband Wi-Fi access they can utilize? And in a lot of cases, they don't have that. At this point, there's no easy fix for that.
All right, thank you, Steve. What is the best place to find the new billing codes related to telehealth?
Right. Actually, at the end of this presentation, we do have a link that goes into some depth around the billing code. So I would encourage people to take a look at that.
Okay, and Stephanie, if I can ask you to please advance to the next slide. The resources are listed there, and we will make these slides available to everyone after the briefing. Okay, great, thank you. I believe we have covered most of the questions, and I don't see any new ones coming in unless someone wants to type them up. So, sorry, Steve, any parting words of wisdom here? If you had to give one piece of advice to executives about what to gear up for after COVID-19 on the telehealth front, what would you say?
I would say that's a good question. I think that the one area that I would look at would be consumer, making sure that your product is consumer friendly, that it is a very accessible, easy to use tool that will optimize keeping the individuals who are serving engaged in the telehealth process.
Wonderful, thank you so much, Steve, and thank you all for joining us this afternoon, or whatever time it is, depending on what time zone you're in. We appreciate your taking the time, and we have many more web briefings coming up in our series, and we invite you to come back next Thursday, April 23rd, for a web briefing by our Executive Vice President, Timothy Snyder, on how you can generate revenue through virtual channels. How do you prepare your website, your social media, and all of your other digital channels, as Steve was mentioning, to attract more customers to your virtual services. So the information is on our website. You'll also be getting emails from us. We encourage you to sign up for that. And we've got about 30 more web briefings on a variety of crisis management and crisis recovery topics. We hope you will take advantage of all of those web briefings as well. And Steve will be back with more in a few weeks, I believe. So we appreciate that, and thank you again.
Thank you.
Have a great rest of your day, folks.